Hi everyone, Hoodie here, Geeky Hoodie, and today I'm going to talk about comic books using my Super Soup show. So, today I want to talk about Alpha Flight. No. Nor do I want to talk about Secret Wars 2. That's a couple of very, very, very bad comic books. Today I want to talk about other media coming into comic books. Now, we've seen a lot of stuff via the comic books coming into TV or movie realm. But what happens when you want to take stuff from the world and put it into the comic book world? Sometimes it makes great interaction stuff. Sometimes it doesn't. So I'm going to show you a few comic books that, would kind of fit these not so good. Some of them good. But not so good on some others. So let's take a look. The first one would be toys. Now, many toys have become that people have wanted to create. There's Sectars. I can think of Crystar. But one of the more successful comic books. Now, once again, this is back in the 70s and 80s. You really don't see that too much. And of course there's other comic book out there that are based upon toys they want to sell, and this is ROM. This is one of my favorite issues because it has Awesome Andy in there, or Awesome Android. So anyway, but the ROM, the Space Knight, was just a Parker Brothers, I believe, action figure, and it really didn't sell too well in the actual stores, but man, did it sell on the shelves. I mean, there's tons of ROM comic books that we have available at Robin Hood's Loot comic book store. But there's also some other great stuff out there. But sometimes this was a great crossover because it brought in other superhero characters and interacted with them. But it didn't do really anything for the bottom line for the action figures. And I don't think I've ever seen it like, wow, this action figure, as well as this comic book here, caused the comic book to flourish. Versus you could take this comic book, and if you took this comic book and made it into a movie, then maybe these comic books would flourish more. But there's that. So putting toys into comic books, not so much. Now, we all know that there's comic book movies. Yes, comic book movies, but movies being put into comic book taking a movie and making it into a comic book sometimes is very successful. Look at Star Wars. Look at Star Trek comic books. Indiana Jones, things of that sort. Very successful movies that became comic books and still had a great run. Condor Man, not so much. Yeah, it's so cheesy. But there's other movies, they have Independence Day. Of course, it's one-shot stuff. It's stuff you'll find all the time. I have a Buckaroo Banzai comic book that was a movie, and then they made a comic book out of it. Yeah, so there's that. So usually, sometimes it transfers good, but you've got to have a really good story, like Star Wars or Star Trek or something that Indiana Jones, that you can expand on the worlds, because you've got to get past one issue. That's the success to take a movie and make it into a long-standing comic book, is you've got to have a storyline that can be added on, like I mentioned, the Star Wars and Star Trek stuff, because they have lots of material that's left out of the movies. And currently the Star Wars, which right here, the Star Wars, this is the free comic book day version, they're filling in the gaps between Empire Strike, I believe, New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, I think. Yeah, after the first Death Star is blown up. So they're filling in the gaps here, and lots of cool stuff there. So it can work for you, but you just got to have lots of material to be able to put into the comic books. And last but not least is actors. Now, some actors are very successful, and I can't think of any right offhand that I'm thinking, that actor or that TV show had a really strong following in the comic book realm. But this one right here, which is Mr. T, and they attempted to do Mr. T, T-Force.
Hello.
That's okay. Go away. Go. That was my Mr. T. And the only other ones I've seen is I've seen the presidential stuff. I've seen some other people in the media that they've done, and they've even had a Barack the Barbarian, So if they're doing a comedy kind of take on the character, but usually it's not a ongoing thing because basically actors just really don't have the pull to keep an ongoing story, unless, like say with Mr. T, it's just that because he was popular at the time, changing the face of comics since 1986. Now comics, there's that. So unless the actor themselves are out there and giving you lots of material to build, same thing back with the movies, is if they're not giving you enough material to write with, then really the comic book's not really going to stay. But many times back in the olden days, in the 1960s and 50s, they'd have Jesse James and they'd have John Wayne comics and stuff like that, because once again you had these TV shows and you were able to build upon that. But today's not really so much. So anyway, so a lot of times crossing over from the TV and the TV to comics and movies to comics and the action figures to comics and so on and so forth doesn't always make a great mix. Unless you could tell me one that you think that would be better suited for this. What do you think? That's it. Hopefully you enjoyed this dish of Super Soup, and hope to see you soon. Keep reading.